Well, what do you make of where we are in Syria? Rather than going through obviously all the options of what could happen but what the British government under Keir Starmer should be doing right now?
Well, it sort of throws into light what's been going on really with Israel and Hezbollah. The reality, he's been overthrown because Hezbollah have been basically destroyed as a serious fighting force. They are the proxies of Iran. Iran, therefore, is busy with them, unable to help. Russia, of course, involved in the Ukraine war, absolutely unable to help. And he doesn't have the capacity, or didn't have the capacity, to fight the rebels. So you can see that the shockwaves of the conflict that started in Israel with Hamas, how the ripples of that are right across the Middle East now. Who knows who this new lot are? They have a pretty bad record at the moment for Islamic extremism. They're a mixed bunch, as usual, so there may be some decent people in it. And now this opens up the door to all sorts of internal conflicts. Turkey, of course, supporting them, but then you've got various other groups that have a chunk of Syria already. So I just don't know. I don't see this being settled quickly. The government has got to very quickly settle this row that's going on in Cyprus about the sovereign bases. They've, of course, opened the door to that because, of course, the Chagos Islands deal is such an idiotic deal, which means everybody else that's got sovereign bases there will now be saying, well, give us those back, and we can't afford to do that. And the second thing is we better make some fast tracks to Trump, because he's the new president coming in, and he will consider the whole of this to have been really a problem with British stupidity at the beginning in terms of our ability to be able to work together. So we better start making some very strong alliances with him as well.
Yeah, what did you make, by the way, of Keir Starmer? He was already planning a trip in the Middle East, and the man can't keep off a plane, it would seem, at the current time, but he was already planning to go to Bahrain and Saudi. Instead of going along with many other world leaders to Paris for the, OK, I mean, do we really care that much in terms of, for us, but going to see the reopening of Notre Dame after that terrible fire. But when Donald Trump was going to be there, we've ended up with Prince William making nicey-nicey with Donald Trump rather than our own Prime Minister. Is that what we're resorting to now?
Yeah, it's rather bizarre, actually, I have to say. He should have been there because it was a real opportunity for him to get close to Trump. And Trump, whatever anybody thinks about him, is the incoming president. It's very important that they have a proper talk now that he's been elected. I'm pretty certain I know why he's gone for this little tour around the Middle East. It's because they realise that their budget has been such a disaster. They're desperate now for growth. Look at the way he's been sucking up to China unnecessarily. And now he's gone to the Middle East to suck up to all those other countries, the oil-rich countries, to get them to invest in projects in the UK, not least of which is the UAE, who've got some very dodgy issues, particularly about people that they hold prisoner and they want them to come and invest in nuclear energy. So
yeah, brilliant. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I don't want various different leaders of petrostates in the Middle East to come and buy up most of London and our utilities. Thanks very much. I'm not sure that's a healthy way to run an economy.
It's not, and what's going on here is you can see the desperation in his face. So he's literally going around every country asking them for commercial favours, and that's now their priority because domestically they're in a lot of trouble. But that means, however, he wasn't at Notre Dame, and he didn't have the opportunity to speak to Trump. It's good that Trump got on very well with Prince William, but Prince William isn't the government at the end of the day, so this needs to be resolved, and they need to have a serious policy about international relations and the threats that are pouring onto us at the moment.
Absolutely, they really are, and I'm not quite sure whether they're on top of most of these things. I mean, what do you make of Rachel Reeves, our Chancellor, heading over to Brussels today to meet with other EU, we meet with EU finance ministers. We're not in the EU, talking about having a business-like relationship with them, saying that, we need to go for growth. How on earth are we going to boost our own country's growth, appalling growth level, by basically hitching ourselves closer to Europe, where the two major economies, both France and Germany, are in absolute freefall?
Yeah, it's a bizarre sort of position to take. We have a trade deal with the European Union. If they want to do anything at all about that, they need to make sure that the European Union behaves properly over that trade deal, tidy up those elements. Running around sucking up to various bodies in the EU isn't going to change the terms of our engagement. But there is a very big possibility in America. Donald Trump has a huge affection for the UK, and he wants to do a trade deal with the UK, no
Yeah.
question at all. And so the reality is they should be there. And that's another reason why they should have been
Yeah.
at Notre Dame, because that's what they should be talking about now,
And it is those,
doing a trade deal.
it is those sort of one-on-one moments. It is that sort of making those friendships, those alliances, those personal, there's just sort of personal connections. This really matters. There's a reason why they all go to these summits. It's how they can have that quiet word and have that personal connection. And we know that's how things work with Donald Trump, don't we?
They do. You saw how he behaved with Prince William.
Yeah.
He always has that very close moment with various people that he quite likes. He's always been a huge supporter
Yeah.
of the British monarchy. And so the result of all of that is that we had an opportunity to go and get beside him and talk to him. After all, United States is our biggest single country
Yep.
partner in trade. And ironically, we do a surplus with the United States. We don't do a surplus with the European Union. We haven't done for 40 years. So the reality is this is a real opportunity to establish new links, particularly on financial services, which is a huge market for us.
Yeah, indeed. Let's bring things go closer to home, though, and talk about the stuff that really matters to local people. A load of new houses being built at the end of their street and feeling like they're not going to have a say, and their bin collections. Talking about the housing, first of all, Angela Rayner, both Deputy Prime Minister and Housing Secretary, has been talking about how she wants to sort of put people ahead of, you know, the protecting the local wildlife, the bats and the newts and their habitats, and actually making sure that the NIMBYs don't get the final say. At the end of the day, this is something that your old party, your party wanted to do, but then failed to do because, of course, local MPs in many shires went, this is really unpopular with my voters. But we all know we need more homes, and both your party and the Labour Party insist on having millions of new people coming to the country, so we need even more homes. Is the answer taking away the final say on new house building projects from local people?
Well, I've always had a problem when you say to local people your view doesn't count, because in my constituency, for example, the council wants to just dump huge tower blocks all over the place. So nobody's opposed genuinely to building houses that are in keeping with the other houses. In other words, if it's low-rise family housing, that's what you need to build. I once approached the council about this and said, you keep on dumping these plans for 10, 15, 20-storey buildings there.
Yeah.
Amongst family housing.
Yeah.
What you want to do is make law land available for family housing, and you won't get as many objections to this. But instead of which they said, oh, well, you know, it works in Manhattan, one of them said to me. I said, what? This is outer London. It's not Manhattan. Central London, fine for those sort of tower blocks. But, you know, do it properly, yes, and then you'll find fewer local people object. And that's where the problem arises.
Yeah, but also if the homes were affordable for local people's adult children, which they rarely are. I mean, certainly around my way, the new homes, and their idea of what an affordable home isn't remotely affordable to most people who are looking to buy a home and start a family.
That's exactly right. And, of course, it's all about doing it right. Now, of course, there do need to be changes to the planning system. The planning system allows far too many constant niggling people opposed to things on very low numbers. But that can and should be done, but it takes a long time to get planning changes through. I mean, I was in a government that said we're going to really change all those planning applications, change the rules so that we can get stuff done quicker. And after about 2.5 years, we didn't produce very much at the end of it all because there were so many blocks going on within government. So it's a very tough thing to change our planning to look like something, I don't know, in France where they just bulldoze over people's objections. We don't do that here. That's a good thing, but it's also difficult.
There must be a happy medium where things need to be built and people need new homes. But we could also try not importing 1 million more people every year, couldn't we? That might help as well.
Well, a huge drive for new housing, yes, for local people, of course, but the big demand has been hugely to do with the, migration, and there's no getting around it. There's no trying to pretend that this hasn't been a problem. Yeah. If you're importing every year, you know, a city the size of, I think, Sheffield or something, then you're going to be in trouble. And it's also, the other problem is so much of what we do is concentrated in the southeast of England. You know, unlike most other countries where there is plenty of land around other cities in the Midlands and particularly in the north, we want to diversify and push out a lot of business to other areas around the UK so that there you'll get much housing already, and you'll get more space to build houses.
Yeah, and it will help boost those economies. Well, just want to ask you just about bin collections. Very quietly on the date of that assisted dying debate, when all the focus was on what was going on in the chamber, the government dropped what was, again, a far too late in the day Tory plan to require councils to empty our black bins every 2 weeks. Most places now it's 2 weeks for black bins, sometimes longer, and 1 week for every week for recycling. In Wales, under a Labour government in Wales many years, it's now down to once every 3 weeks. Many built-up areas in London, I mean, that's what we're facing too. The plan to basically require the fortnightly collections, that's been dropped. As a cost-saving measure, everyone's now expecting it's going to be every 3 weeks. People don't really want much from their local council, but one of the few things most families do want is just their bins collected, their rubbish taken away. How tenable is it for the entire country to move to every 3 weeks?
It's ridiculous. Because, of course, particularly in places like London, where you get foxes, etc., moving around, urban foxes and others, ripping stuff out of the bins, the longer you leave them there, the more difficult it gets to collect it as well. And the problem is that for many households, it becomes an eyesore if you're not careful. And there's already difficulty in the number of bins that exist outside houses.
Oh, God, yeah.
You want to add another bin or two to that, it's going to literally be an eyesore for all of them too.
We're going to be rubbish bins with houses attached at this rate, aren't we?
Yeah. The 3 weeks, it was bad enough, it's bad enough 2 weeks, but 3 weeks will be, I think, really awful. And I don't think people pay their council tax, etc., so they can see their bins lying full of rubbish. And particularly over the Christmas period, of course, where there's going to be a lot of rubbish put out there. If there's nothing collected in time, it's a disaster.
Absolutely. Oh, just finally, I've got really, really briefly, Suella Braverman's husband, we understand, is defected to Reform UK. Possibility the actual former Home Secretary may defect to Reform UK. Are you thinking of doing the same?
No. Not at all. I don't think they'd have me. It's a bit like Groucho Marx. I could never be a member of a party that would actually have me.
Not going to happen. Iain Duncan Smith staying put. Sir Iain, thank you so much for joining us.